I was 62 years old when my own daughter looked me in the eye and told me to hand over my life savings or pack my bags. The audacity of her demand hung in the air of my dining room heavy and suffocating. Sarah sat across from me, her arms crossed, a look of absolute entitlement plastered on her face. Beside her sat Arthur, my husband of 5 years. He didn't look shocked. He didn't defend me. Instead, he stirred his coffee, leaned back in his chair, and frowned at me. "Catherine, be reasonable." Arthur murmured, his voice dripping with condescension. "You are being entirely too selfish about this. Sarah needs that money for the venue. We are a family, and family helps each other." I looked at the two of them. I had spent decades building my savings dollar by dollar after my first husband passed away. That money was my security, my quiet peace of mind in a world that had already taken so much from me. Sarah wanted it for a champagne fountain and a custom floral archway for her upcoming wedding. "Give me the account details by tomorrow," Sarah demanded, slamming her thick wedding planner notebook onto the oak table. Or, "Honestly, Mom, you can just get out. I won't have toxic energy ruining my planning process." She told me to get out. Out of the house I owned. Out of the life I funded. I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice or launch into a bitter tirade about everything I had sacrificed for her. Crying would have shown them they had power over me. Arguing would have meant I respected their ridiculous ultimatum. Instead, I simply smiled. It wasn't a smile of defeat, but of absolute, chilling clarity. I looked at Sarah, then at Arthur, and nodded slowly. "I understand," I replied quietly. They thought they had won. They thought I was surrendering to their pressure. They had no idea what I was about to do next. To understand how we reached that dinner table, you have to look at the slow creep of disrespect. When I married Arthur, I thought I was gaining a partner for my later years. Instead, I gained a dependent. He moved into my home, the house I had fully paid off years before meeting him, and immediately stopped contributing. He claimed his retirement fund was tied up, and I, wanting peace, quietly took over the household expenses. Then came Sarah. 6 months ago, she and her fiancé, Mark, moved into the guest bedrooms to save money for their wedding. I welcomed them thinking it would be a brief transitional period. Within weeks, my home was no longer mine. Sarah took over the kitchen, throwing away my groceries to make room for her organic meal preps. Mark spent his weekends dominating the living room, leaving his dirty boots on my rugs. Whenever I gently brought up cleaning schedules or grocery bills, Sarah rolled her eyes. "Mom, we're stressed." She groaned one afternoon, tossing her laundry into my basket. "Can you just handle it? You don't have much else going on." Arthur encouraged this behavior. He liked having a full house because it meant more people to applaud his mediocre jokes and fetch his drinks. He acted like the patriarch of a manor, entirely ignoring the fact that my bank account kept the lights on the water running and the pantry stocked. I became a ghost in my own hallways. I watched them order expensive takeout while I ate leftovers. I watched delivery drivers drop off endless packages of wedding favors, while the property tax bill sat on my desk waiting for my checkbook. I didn't complain. I didn't beg for respect. I just started paying very close attention to exactly how much of their lifestyle relied entirely on my silent wallet. And I realized my silence had been entirely mistaken for weakness. The breaking point didn't happen with a shouting match. It happened on a Tuesday morning while I was reviewing my credit card statements. There, buried between a grocery charge and a gas station receipt, was a pending transaction for $4,000 to a luxury bridal boutique. I stared at the screen. I hadn't been to a bridal boutique. I hadn't authorized the charge. Sarah had memorized my credit card number months ago when I allowed her to buy a simple blender for the kitchen. She had kept the numbers, and now she was using them. I picked up my mug of tea, walked into the living room, and found Sarah scrolling on her tablet. "Did you put a charge on my card for your dress?" I asked, keeping my tone perfectly level. She didn't even look up. Oh yeah, the deposit was due. Don't worry. Consider it your early contribution to the wedding. Arthur said you wouldn't mind. Arthur said, not asking me, telling me. I nodded, turned around, and walked back to my office. I didn't demand she cancel it. I didn't scream about theft. Crying over spilled milk doesn't clean the floor. Action does. I logged into my banking portal. I didn't just dispute the bridal charge, I canceled the entire credit card. Then I looked at the joint checking account I shared with Arthur, the one I funded every month for our expenses. He had recently withdrawn $500 to buy golf clubs. With a few clicks, I transferred every single dollar of my personal money out of that joint account and into a new private account at a completely different bank. I removed my name from the shared overdraft protection. I changed my passwords, secured my documents, and locked my credit profile. I was systematically dismantling the foundation they were comfortably standing on. And they were too busy admiring the view to notice the ground cracking beneath their feet. The next few days felt strangely peaceful. Once you decide you are no longer going to be someone's safety net, the anxiety disappears. You just have to follow through with the logistics. I spent my afternoons making phone calls. I called the electric company, the water department, the internet provider, and the gas company. All the accounts were solely in my name. I scheduled a shutoff for all utilities for the following Monday morning. Then I met with a local real estate agent. I didn't need a complicated legal process. I owned the house outright. My name was the only one on the deed. I signed a listing agreement requesting a quick sale. The agent promised to have the for sale sign ready by early next week. At home, Arthur and Sarah continued their routine completely oblivious. Arthur complained that the internet was slow. Sarah complained that I hadn't bought her preferred brand of almond milk. I just listened, offering polite, non-committal hums. I started packing my belongings. I didn't drag large suitcases down the stairs to create a scene. I quietly filled small boxes in my bedroom, loading them into the trunk of my car whenever they were out of the house. I took my jewelry, my important family photos, my financial documents, and my favorite clothes. By Friday evening, my bedroom was mostly empty, though the bed was still made, and the closet doors were closed to hide the bare hangers. I was ready. I just needed the right moment to hand them the reality they had asked for. That moment arrived on Sunday night during the dinner where Sarah handed me her ultimate demand. They thought they were cornering an old, tired woman. They were actually just walking into a room that had already been cleared out. Sunday dinner was usually my responsibility to cook, but I had chosen to order a simple pizza. Sarah scoffed at the cardboard boxes on the dining table, picking off a slice of pepperoni with visible disgust. Arthur sighed loudly, opening a beer, and muttering about how my standards had slipped. I sat quietly, sipping my water, waiting. I knew Sarah had a venue deadline approaching, so Sarah began pushing her plate away. We need to finalize the venue payment tomorrow. It's $40,000. I need you to transfer your savings into my account by morning. I placed my glass down. I am not giving you $40,000, Sarah. That is my retirement. Arthur slammed his hand on the table, rattling the plates. Catherine, stop this nonsense. You live comfortably. You can afford to help your daughter. It's my house too, and I say we support her. Your house? I asked softly. Yes, my house. Arthur snapped. I am your husband. Now stop being stubborn and give the girl what she needs. Sarah leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. Give me the account details by tomorrow. Or honestly, Mom, you can just get out. I won't have toxic energy ruining my planning process. The room went dead, silent. The ultimatum hung there. They stared at me, waiting for the tears, the apologies, the desperate need to keep my family together. I looked at the two people who had drained my energy, my pantry, and my patience. I smiled. I understand. I stood up, pushed my chair in, and walked calmly to my bedroom. I grabbed my purse, my coat, and the single overnight bag I had left out. I walked back down the hallway, the hardwood floor clicking under my shoes. I was not running away. I was finally walking forward. I stopped at the kitchen island right in their line of sight. Sarah and Arthur were still sitting at the dining table, their expressions shifting from arrogance to confusion as they saw my coat and bag. "What are you doing?" Arthur demanded, half standing. I didn't answer him. Instead, I reached into my purse and pulled out a thick, white envelope. I laid it gently on the granite counter, smoothing the edges with my thumb. "What is that?" Sarah asked, her voice losing its sharp edge, replaced by a sudden nervous flutter. "My contribution," I replied simply. I turned and walked to the front door. I didn't look back. I didn't deliver a grand speech about respect or boundaries. Words had never worked in this house, so I was leaving them with paperwork. I stepped out into the cool evening air, locked the door with my key, and walked to my car. I got in, started the engine, and drove away. Inside that envelope on the kitchen counter were 4 things. First, a printed confirmation from my bank showing the joint checking account was closed, leaving Arthur's debit card completely useless. Second, a copy of the utility termination notices confirming the power, water, and internet would be shut off at 8 a.m. the next morning. Third, the canceled credit card statement with the bridal boutique charge clearly disputed. And finally, a formal 30-day notice to vacate the premises attached to a copy of the property deed with only my name on it right next to the business card of my real estate agent. I merged onto the highway, heading toward a comfortable hotel I had booked for the week. The radio was off. The silence in my car was the most beautiful thing I had heard in years. I knew it wouldn't take long for them to open it. I checked into my hotel room, hung up my coat, and ordered a pot of tea from room service. I sat by the window overlooking the city lights, feeling a profound sense of lightness. At exactly 8:42 p.m., my phone screen lit up on the nightstand. It was Sarah. I watched it vibrate, ring, and finally go to voicemail. 2 minutes later, Arthur called. Then Sarah again. Then Arthur. The text messages started flooding in, appearing on my screen like rapid-fire bursts of panic. "Mom, what is this? Are you crazy? Call me back right now. Sarah. Catherine, you cannot do this. Turn the joint account back on. I need to pay for my golf membership tomorrow. Arthur, did you really cancel the credit card? The boutique just emailed me. Mom, pick up the phone. Sarah." I took a slow sip of my tea. They had opened the envelope. By 9:30 p.m., the text changed from commands to threats. Arthur texted that he would change the locks. I ignored it. I knew he couldn't change the locks on a house he didn't own, especially not without any money in his account to pay a locksmith. By Monday morning, the real reality set in. At 8:05 a.m., I received a frantic text from Sarah. The power just went out. And the water is off. "Mom, what did you do?" Mark is freaking out. "Please, you have to fix this." They were sitting in a dark, cold house, holding an eviction notice with declined cards and zero access to my savings. The power they thought they had over me was entirely an illusion. They had commanded the captain to abandon ship completely, forgetting that I was the one keeping the boat afloat. At noon on Monday, I finally answered a call. It was Arthur. As soon as I pressed accept, his voice boomed through the speaker, tight with anger and panic. "Catherine, you need to come home this instant and fix this mess. You are acting like a petulant child. Turn the utilities back on and put the money back in the account. We have no heat. You told me to be reasonable." I said, my voice steady and calm. "And Sarah told me to get out. I did exactly what you both asked." I left. You didn't just leave. You cut us off, Arthur yelled. I am your husband. You are a guest in my house, I corrected him firmly. A house that goes on the market next week. You have 29 days to pack your things. The notice is legally binding. Before he could shout again, I hung up. Minutes later, Sarah called. I answered. She was sobbing a loud, dramatic wail that she usually used to get her way when she was a teenager. Mom, please, she cried. The venue just canceled my date because the deposit bounced. Mark is furious with me. His parents are asking questions. You are ruining my wedding. You have to transfer the savings. I am not ruining anything. Sarah, I replied, you planned a wedding with my money without my permission. You demanded my savings or told me to leave. I left. My money left with me. But what am I supposed to do? She begged. Downsize, I suggested calmly. Pay for what you can actually afford. Good luck, Sarah. I ended the call. I turned my phone on silent, placed it in a drawer, and went for a long, quiet walk in the park. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel cruel. I just felt completely, wonderfully free. The collapse of their fragile empire happened rapidly. Without my financial backing, Sarah's grand wedding plans disintegrated. The luxury venue released her date to another couple. The florist canceled the order. Mark, realizing that Sarah had no money of her own and that her family was not the wealthy safety net she had pretended, we were decided to postpone the wedding indefinitely. I heard through a mutual acquaintance that he packed his bags and moved back in with his parents by Wednesday. Arthur's situation was equally pathetic. Without the joint checking account, his routine of golf and expensive lunches vanished. He tried to contact a real estate lawyer to claim half of my house, but quickly discovered that because I had inherited the house before our marriage and never put his name on the deed, he had absolutely no legal standing. Even if he did, he couldn't afford the retainer to fight me. On Thursday, my real estate agent hammered the for sale sign into the front lawn. I wasn't there to see it, but the agent texted me a photo. She also mentioned that Arthur and Sarah were frantically hauling boxes out to their cars, looking miserable. They didn't stay the full 30 days. Living without electricity, hot water, and internet tends to speed up the moving process. Arthur went to stay with his brother in another state. Sarah rented a tiny studio apartment on the bad side of town, forced to finally get a second job to cover her own rent. I never went back to the house while they were there. I hired a cleaning crew to scrub the place once they vacated. The house sold 3 weeks later for over asking price, adding a significant amount to the savings account they had tried so hard to steal. I didn't buy another large house. I purchased a beautiful 2-bedroom condo in a quiet, gated community overlooking a small lake. It has a modern kitchen where no one throws away my groceries and a living room where no muddy boots ever touch the rugs. Arthur and I finalized our divorce quietly. He didn't have the funds to drag it out, and I offered a very small, one-time settlement just to make him sign the papers and disappear forever. It was a cheap price to pay for my permanent peace. Sarah and I rarely speak. She texted me on my birthday a short, stiff message. I replied with a simple, "Thank you." I don't harbor deep hatred for her, but I also refuse to let her back into my wallet or my daily life. Trust is a bridge she burned, and I have no interest in rebuilding it. She has to learn how to walk on her own 2 feet now. Last month, I took a solo trip to Italy, something I had dreamed about for a decade, but was always told was too expensive, by a husband who secretly spent my money on golf clubs. Walking through the cobblestone streets of Florence drinking espresso without anyone complaining or demanding my attention, I felt a profound sense of reclamation. I finally realized that my life savings weren't just numbers in a bank account. They were my freedom. They were the security I had earned through years of hard work, not a slush fund for entitled adults who refuse to grow up. My new neighbors in the condo community are wonderful. We share gardening tips, enjoy quiet evening walks, and most importantly, nobody asks me for money. I've learned that family isn't just about blood or a marriage certificate. It's about mutual respect. If a relationship requires you to make yourself smaller, poorer, or quieter, it isn't love. It's an exploitation. Sometimes the hardest thing a mother can do is stop softening the blows of reality for her grown children. I spend my mornings drinking tea on my balcony watching the water. I control my time, my space, and my resources. I am no longer a background character in my own life waiting to be assigned a task or handed a bill. If you are ever made to feel like an ATM in your own home, remember this: you hold the power. Draw your boundaries, secure your future, and don't be afraid to leave the envelope on the counter. If my story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more stories about taking back your power and protecting your peace. Have you ever had to cut off a family member who mistreated you or had an envelope moment of your own? Share your story in the comments below. I read every single one. And your experience might just be the exact thing someone else needs to hear today to finally walk away. Remember, you are not selfish for choosing yourself.